February 14th, 1933. Bumpy Johnson was facing odds of 12 to 1. Dutch Schultz had dispatched his most lethal crew: Tommy the Executioner, Vento, Marty, Icepick, Delaney, along with 10 more killers whose names even law enforcement didn't have on file. They boxed Bumpy in inside the basement of the Cotton Club. No witnesses, no exits, no second chances. Bumpy was just 27 years old, still learning the deeper layers of the game. Dutch Schultz was the most feared gangster in New York City. Everyone expected the same conclusion: Bumpy Johnson dead on a basement floor. But what Dutch Schultz never understood was that Bumpy Johnson didn't operate by anyone else's rules. 90 minutes later, only one of those 12 men walked out alive, and the message he carried back was enough to make Dutch Schultz, a man responsible for more than 40 killings, turn pale. This is the story of the night Bumpy Johnson became untouchable. To understand that night, you have to understand Harlem in 1933. This was no longer the era of the Harlem Renaissance. The Great Depression had crushed the neighborhood. Jobs were scarce. Hunger was common. And when people are desperate, they gamble. The numbers racket. Harlem's illegal lottery was the economic heartbeat of the community. A nickel bet could turn into $50. For men earning $7 a week, that nickel wasn't luck. It was hope, and hope had value. Dutch Schultz saw that value immediately. A German, Jewish mobster out of the Bronx. Dutch had built a fortune during Prohibition. But Prohibition was ending, and Dutch needed a new revenue stream. So he looked south. He saw Harlem. He saw money flowing through the numbers game. And he decided he wanted all of it. There was only one obstacle. Harlem already had rulers: Madame Stephanie Saint Clair, the queen of the numbers, and her enforcer, a young man named Bumpy Johnson. Bumpy wasn't like other muscle. He wasn't just a gun. He was educated, self-taught in prison, reading Shakespeare and philosophy. He understood something most gangsters didn't. In Harlem, power didn't come from fear alone. It came from loyalty. When Madame St. Clair's runners were robbed, Bumpy recovered the money. When corrupt cops harassed black businesses, Bumpy made the problem disappear. Sometimes violently, sometimes by ending careers and reputations. He was precise, strategic, and he refused to bend the knee to Dutch Schultz. In January 1933, Dutch sent emissaries into Harlem. They met Madame St. Clair at her club on 133rd Street. Their message was simple: work with Dutch, pay tribute, or be buried. Madame St. Clair looked at the white men sitting in her club and told them to leave. They turned to Bumpy, standing silently in the corner. "You want to be smart about this, boy." A Bumpy didn't move, didn't speak. He just stared. The kind of stare that makes men think about their life insurance. The emissaries returned to Dutch Schultz with the answer. And Dutch, who had never been told no, especially not by a black woman and her enforcer, made his decision: burn it all down. Starting with Bumpy Johnson. He didn't just want Bumpy dead. He wanted a message. Public. Brutal. Something that would make everyone else fall in line. February 14th, 1933. Valentine's Day. A fitting irony. Bumpy got word that Dutch's men planned to hit Madame St. Clair's main counting house on Lenox Avenue at dawn. Bumpy went to investigate alone. That was his first mistake. Or maybe it wasn't a mistake at all. Maybe he knew exactly what he was walking into. The Cotton Club basement. Not the famous downtown club for white audiences. This was the real Cotton Club. The after-hours spot where Harlem's power players drank, gambled, and settled debts. The basement held liquor crates, poker tables, and one narrow staircase. A perfect killing ground. 4:32 a.m. Bumpy walked down the stairs. One bare bulb swung from the ceiling. Then he heard it. Safeties clicking off. 12 guns. 12 men emerging from the shadows. Tommy the executioner stepped forward. 16 kills. Always close range. Always eye contact. He smiled. Dutch sends his regards. A Bumpy stood still, hands at his sides, calm. He counted the room. 12. Then looked back at Tommy. That all he sent. Tommy's smile vanished. Bumpy Johnson didn't bluff. When he spoke, he meant it. Outnumbered 12-1. That wasn't bravado. It was math. You got 5 seconds to beg, Tommy said, raising his gun. You're making a mistake, Bumpy replied. What mistake? You're about to die. The mistake, Bumpy said evenly, is thinking I came here alone. No one fired. Doubt crept in. Tommy glanced toward the stairs. Nothing. Look back. You're bluffing. Bumpy smiled. Then shoot. Nobody did. What Dutch's men didn't know was that Bumpy had been fighting since childhood. Charleston. Harlem. Prison yards. He'd learned that violence has rhythm. And in that basement, Bumpy controlled it. Tommy tightened his grip. Last chance. Bumpy moved. What happened next was never fully reconstructed. The survivor's account was fragmented, but the facts are clear. Bumpy didn't reach for a gun. He punched the light. The bulb shattered. Total darkness. Panic. Gunfire erupted. Wild. Men firing at shadows, at sounds. Tommy screamed for control. But fear doesn't follow orders. Bumpy knew the room. Every crate. Every table. His enemies didn't. One by one they fell. Not from bullets. From confusion. From each other's gunfire. From Bumpy's hands. Screams. Bodies hitting concrete. Chaos. Tommy ordered a retreat. The stairs. But Bumpy was already there. 3 minutes. That's all it took. When the door finally opened upstairs and light flooded in, 11 men were down. Some dead. Some broken. All finished. One man remained conscious, shaking against the wall. Marty. Icepick. Delaney. Bumpy was gone. Marty crawled up the stairs as dawn broke. It took 20 minutes. He hailed a cab with blood-soaked cash. Bronx, he gasped. 8:17 a.m. Marty stumbled into Dutch Schultz's club. Dutch was eating breakfast, reading the paper. He looked up and froze. Where are the others? Marty shook his head. Dead. All of them. Dutch stood slowly. He killed them. He let me live. The room went silent. What message? Marty placed a blood-stained ace of spades on the table. Harlem's not for sale. If you send more men, send more cards. He's collecting a deck. Dutch stared at the card. Then smiled. Not amused, resigned. He's got nerve. His men urged retaliation. Dutch raised a hand. You know what war with a man like that costs? Everything. He burned the card. We're done in Harlem. The decision stunned everyone. But Dutch understood. A man willing to die for his code can't be intimidated. You kill him, or you leave him alone. And Dutch couldn't kill Bumpy. Years later, a former Cotton Club employee claimed Bumpy had backup upstairs, locking the basement door. Maybe truth. Maybe legend. What mattered was the result. Dutch Schultz never sent another man into Harlem. Bumpy Johnson ruled Harlem for the next 35 years. With strategy, with discipline, with respect. February 14, 1933, 12 men went into a basement, one came out, and Harlem was never the same. If this story hit you, subscribe. We tell the story's history buried, the moments that made legends untouchable. Drop a like if you believe Bumpy Johnson was the smartest man in Harlem. And tell us, what would you have done if you were Dutch Schultz?